This is the most outrageous horror film that you'll...
The unholiest terror of...
Don't miss the all-new Halloween.
We will be lovers very soon, my darling. And believe me, I have all the necessary equipment to make you very, very happy. Her possessiveness worries me. Has it occurred to you that she might have lesbian tendencies?
My secretary's been attacked, now David, and oh yes, just a minor detail. There's some fruitcake out there who apparently wants to kill me.
Dearest bitch, see how accessible you are? How would you like to be fucked with a meat cleaver?
Hi, this is Russell Todd from Chopping Mall, He Knows You're Alone, and Friday the 13th Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 216. And as this isn't a video podcast, you can't see me doing jazz hands. But yes, we are covering 1981's The Fan, with Lauren Bacall being chased by Michael Biehn, a crazed fan, which is... I'd say off the top of the off the top of the bat, if that's the right saying, I'm not sure if it is that perhaps this film is the background to it's a bit more interesting, and the kind of history and the context of it is perhaps arguably more interesting than the actual film itself, although that remains to be seen. But we are talking of people disappearing one by one. We think Joseph's overslept, so we have pressed on without him, but we're hoping he'll be joining us at some point during the show, because we're practically full to the rafters, aren't we? With stuff, we're doing lots of commentaries and various bits and pieces at the moment, which we can't tell you about, but they're very exciting. But yes, our time is a precious commodity for us at the moment. So without Joseph, who hopefully will be joining us very shortly, Erik, how are you? And would you like to appear on Broadway with your jazz hands?
I have already. I'm a famous stage actor. I'm surprised you haven't heard of me.
What have you been in?
I've been in, I was in Chess, and I was in Cats, and Phantom of the Opera.
What were you playing?
Mr. Mistopheles in all of them.
I see. Okay, right. Okay. Well,
But just going to say, I also have the necessary equipment to make you very happy. I mean, like a CD player, so you can listen to your Susie and the Banshees albums.
Well, thank you very much.
What did you think I meant?
Well, I was hoping you meant a record player, because you want to get my 12-inch out.
Mm-hmm. Sure you did.
Already bringing down the tone of the show. Well, thank you, Erik. Nathan, have you appeared on Broadway?
I did a school play.
Did you?
Yes, I was in Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Was it a musical?
No. No, I can't sing.
Well, we know that from the Hysteria Misfits.
How dare you?
Oh, how dare you. How very dare you.
See, Justin disagrees with you, Erik, and Joseph's not here, so it's 2 versus 1.
That's because Justin's part of the Hysteria Misfits. Obviously, he's going to stand up for it.
Well, we are the classic twosome. I don't know, who else could we compare ourselves to?
The Cheeky Girls.
Not quite the Cheeky Girls, no, but
the group that sings Panic.
They're a foursome.
The Smiths.
Oh,
Smiths.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a duo.
You could be like Milli Vanilli.
But I once trod the boards as well, only once in school panto.
Yeah, I did school plays as well. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, yeah, I played.
I was the lead in one.
Were you?
Yeah,
Mr. Mistopheles.
No, it wasn't a musical.
I played, and this is true actually. I played Camp Dwarf number 3.
No way.
I did, yes.
Were you campy?
Well, I had one line. I can't remember what it was now, but. It was a kind of not rude version because it was a secondary school, but it was kind of a irreverent version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, but anyway, we'll move swiftly on from that. Well, before we get on to The Fan, shall we have a quick chat about what we've been watching recently? So, I know. Well, let's go to Nathan first. Anything you've seen you'd like to chat about?
Yes, I saw Host, the new Zoom horror movie where these friends are having like a Zoom meeting, but it's what they're doing is they meet up with this, I guess, psychic, and they do a seance over Zoom, and they awaken a demon who really didn't want to be awakened, apparently. And they start getting, attacked and killed one by one. And, I like this kind of horror. I love Unfriended. I'm a huge fan of that. So I kind of like the whole, the setup for this. And the movie's only like 56 minutes. So, I mean, it's a really short movie, but I had a lot of fun. I thought it was just a fun, just a fun movie. So I would recommend it.
Cool. What about, have you seen it yet, Erik?
No.
Eric.
You're too busy doing reface, aren't you?
That's it. And also getting clips from my soundboard.
Animal. Cannibal.
What the hell's that from?
Possibly in Michigan.
Violence and perfume.
Something introduced us to it. How did you not know?
I know it's something else I regret introducing you to.
We're obsessed and we're proud to admit it.
Yes, we are obsessed.
But yes, we've been entertaining each other by the deep fake face swaps or with reface. So Eric's put himself on some quite disturbing people.
Yes, Lana from Friday 5 and also, what's the other character in Friday 5? Debbie Sue Voorhees? Tina, is it?
Oh, that I showed that one to Wes and he was crying. He was laughing so hard at it.
So unfortunately, we couldn't share that on Facebook due to their no nudity clause.
No,
but
it's not Facebook friendly.
But if you just imagine a bearded Deborah Voorhees or Debbie Sue Voorhees
in that scene, yes,
that scene, yes, with as nude as nature intended, but with a beard upstairs rather than downstairs. So. So what host? I am not, well, obviously we don't know if Joseph's seen it, but I saw it last night as well, and I kind of thoroughly enjoyed it. It's kind of, it's the first Zoom horror movie I can guess. And it's one of the first kind of new movies that kind of explicitly references lockdown and all the various things with that. So when characters leave the house, which they don't do very often, they're wearing masks. I mean, it's nothing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's kind of like a boo machine, as in like it's not much going on in it apart from the Paranormal Activity style shocks and scares, so loud bangs, people being pulled off in all directions, as it were. But no, I mean by being dragged backwards on a chair and things like that. But I thought it was good fun. And also the really positive thing about it is that the characters are actually quite likable.
Yes. That's one thing I guess I was thinking about with Unfriended is that the characters in Unfriended are not that likable. But in this one, like these people actually do seem like a group of friends that enjoy each other's company.
Yeah. It's interesting as well because they're kind of, they're mostly British, aren't they? It's I don't know if it's a British film, but the majority of the characters are British, English, and I think there's one Australian, one American woman in it. But that's well worth a look if you kind of fancy a bit of sort of that kind of boo machine, Paranormal Activity, lots of jump frights and things like that. So that was fun. Anything else, Nathan?
I have some more recently seen, but I'm going to try to spread it out amongst some of our other episodes. So I would like to hear what you guys have seen.
Okay, well, Erik, how about you?
No,
nothing.
No.
Oh dear.
It's your fault.
Yes, it is my fault.
It is, Justin.
God. What else can I introduce you to by mistake? So, the only other thing that I've seen of note that I was going to bring up was a film that I hadn't heard of before, but we just took a chance on it. It was Russian Bride, or The Russian Bride from last year.
Oh, is that the one about the bride who's Russian?
It is.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
But it is a kind of a bizarre film, actually. But it's Corbin Bernsen, who was, I think didn't he play the dentist in the Dentist movies?
Yes.
And he plays this kind of billionaire who lives in this very remote, massive mansion, and he's hunting for a Russian bride online. and the woman he kind of picks has got a young daughter, sort of like a 12-year-old daughter or something, and so they go and live with him, and they get married. And then it all starts going sort of pear-shaped, quite literally. So without giving it away, is that it's the story of the Russian Bride, where she kind of it turns out that Corbin Burnson is a psycho, which you kind of from the beginning, really. And it's her, the Russian Bride, playing by Oksana Orlan, who is fights back against him and various other people, and you kind of find out the mystery, which I won't spoil, about why what's really going on there. But it's an interesting film in so much it kind of really held my attention. But it's filmed almost like a silent movie, in so much that it's got the acting is so over the top and so dramatic. It's almost like the director has said, and he may well have done, that let's play this as if you're silent movie actors overdoing everything. And also it's incredibly gory as well. There's people having heads shotgunned off, people having their fingers snipped off. So it's kind of the gore that you kind of might have seen in something like The Dentist. So yeah, I had fun with it. So is it one either of you seen or heard of?
Neither seen nor heard of.
Same here, but I want to see it now.
Yeah, it's from last year, 2019. So I think you'd really enjoy it, Nathan. I think it's kind of right up your alley.
There's one thing I wanted to ask you, Justin, because I know you've seen this movie, but do you remember a movie you saw called Tone Deaf?
I'm trying to remember. Remind me what it was about.
It's this woman, I guess she plays piano, but she's really terrible at it, but everybody tells her she's good. And it's got the guy that was in Terminator 2, the one that played the bad guy, Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, the one, oh, right, yeah, where they're kind of millennial versus boomer type thing.
Would I like that?
I reckon so. To be honest, I don't remember a massive amount about it, but I can remember quite enjoying it. Okay. I think if anything, I think Russian Bride would probably be more up your alley than Tone Deaf.
Okay, well, I'll seek out Russian Bride first.
Yeah, I think that'd be wise. But yeah, Tone Deaf, if you can, I remember it's pretty effective for what it is. Well, in that case, let's go straight forward into the trailer for The Fan, and we'll come back after this.
Dear Miss Ross, I am your greatest fan. I have all the necessary equipment to make you very, very happy.
Am I safe, Inspector?
Who knows?
He's after me now, isn't he?
The Fan, rated R.
Hollywood legend Lauren Bacall, The Big Sleep, Michael Biehn, the Terminator tear up the screen in the edge-of-your-seat thriller The Fan. Sally Ross Bacall is a renowned Broadway star, glamorous celebrity and the object of adoration of countless admirers. But among all the loving little people lurks a young man, Biehn, whose devotion teeters on the edge of madness. His impassioned letters to her are initially a source of pleasure, but as he attempts to realize his ultimate fantasy and is met with rejection, the stakes are raised to terrifying heights, which might bring on the final curtain for Sally. That was the back of the Scream Factory Blu-ray, which came out, I'm not sure which year it came out, fairly recently, within the last couple of years, for this movie. The Fan, as I kind of alluded to when we were talking about at the top of the show, was a film that's kind of it's an oddity really. It was released in 1981 at the height of the slasher movie craze. And to give you some idea of what was out at the same time, when I'm looking at clippings for reviews for The Fan, and the print ads, the other films that were in wide release at the time were Happy Birthday to Me, Friday the 13th Part 2, The Howling. So it was a slash heavy sort of time in 1981 at the flick. So The Fan itself is an odd beast in so much that when we get onto backgrounds, it was originally meant to be a more of a kind of psychological thriller, but it was changed into a slasher movie because of the success of two movies. One of them was Friday the 13th, and the other was Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill, which I think is probably slightly more influential on this. So it feels like a bit of an odd beast in so much it's a film that's been turned into a slasher movie, but it's not. Arguably for me, I think it's more interesting the backgrounders of the movie, how it came to be, what it means to certain people. And its kind of legacy, really, rather than necessarily as a straight ahead slasher. Because even regardless of the reviews, which we'll talk about when we get onto background, the film was dismissed as this incredibly gory thriller, sleazy, gory thriller. And actually, compared to, To Dress to Kill and Friday the 13th, it's very little gore in this movie. So it has, to me, it feels, again, this kind of like schizophrenic beast in so much it's you've got Lauren Bacall playing Sally Ross, this Broadway star, and she's playing this as if she's in some not screwball comedy, but like playing Lauren Bacall basically from her heyday, which of course you'd expect her to, but she's playing it as if she's in a much classier film, and the film looks great. I mean, it has a real high budget polish to it. It actually looks really good. But then you've got her playing this kind of as if she's in a kind of more of a polished thriller, psychological thriller, but then you've got these kind of bizarre, kind of slightly the kind of sleazy elements to it. Like there's a scene, Michael Biehn is this kind of crazed star, and you heard it in the opening of the show when he sort of says, how would you like to be fucked with a meat cleaver? Which seems to be completely kind of dialogue like that's completely odds with the kind of tone of the film in some ways. And in fact, actually, that was a line that was cut out of the DVD release that was when Paramount put it out 15, 20 years ago. So I remember watching this on DVD way back when, and being surprised that line was missing. And I went back and checked a VHS I had of it, and that line was in the VHS release. But you've got Michael Bihn's character, who is this obsessive fan, but is kind of painted as kind of a closet gay man, basically someone who possibly can't face up to his sexuality, and so he's obsessed with this unobtainable star. But the film came out came out after films, certainly William Friedkin's Cruising, which was seen as very controversial at the time, especially in the gay community. And I'm not sure, I think it came out after Windows as well, which was kind of what Cruising did not necessarily in the most positive light for gay men that Windows did for lesbians. So this film came out after that, written, which came from the mind really, or came from Robert Stigwood, who was the man behind Grease and Saturday Night Fever. So you've got it's a very strange film. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a very conventional thriller. And when you add people like James Garner into the mix, who's kind of, for me, growing up, was kind of most recognizable for something like The Rockford Files. It's an odd film, and going back and watching it on the Blu-ray, it looks fantastic. The sheen really comes out, but it's a bit of a mess. If I'm honest, I don't think it really works as a slasher movie because it doesn't really go far enough to compete with Friday the 13th or Dress to Kill. You've got strange scenes like when Michael Biehn he kind of murders Lauren Bacall's Sally Ross's maid by literally cutting across her tabard with a razor and having a little splash of blood, and which kills her instantly. So you're certainly not. We're not talking about going for the kind of the gore effects of Tom Savini, but then you've also got kind of bizarrely sleazy passages like the one where Michael Biehn gets a blowjob by a man he picks up in the bar on top of a building and then slits his throat and then sets fire to him, which it works in the context of the story because he's trying to pretend he's dead, but it seems to sit very ill at odds with what Lauren Bacall I think had signed on to originally. So we'll also talk a bit more about that when we get to the background and kind of how the film came to be, but given that the film's got a big gay following, in fact, from what I'm listening to I started listening to the audio commentary on the Scream Factory release, and it was sort of saying that the film, had a big gay following, and in fact, perhaps it was its only following. And so it was interesting considering that again, at the time, closeted gay man, as presumably that one reading of the Michael Biehn character is that he is not a very positive one. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think. So Erik, was this your first time with a fan, or
I have seen it before. I'd seen it on television because I think it was a kind of a staple of television back in the late 80s and the early 90s. I'm assuming it was slightly cut to remove the meat cleaver line and also maybe some of the more close-ups of the gory slashings. But my memories of it were that I didn't really care for it that much.
Why?
Because I found it a bit boring.
Why?
Because I found it a bit boring. But now, that was 30 years ago. I hadn't seen it in the meantime. I think it played at one of the horror-thons in Dublin, but I skipped the screening because, as I said, my memories were that it was a bit dour and dull. But I was kind of surprised then watching it that I did kind of enjoy it. It has a lot in common with films we've discussed in the past, like Visiting Hours and The Seduction, where a celebrity is stalked by an overzealous fan. And of those three, of the fan, Visiting Hours and Seduction, I think at this moment in time, I think The Fan is my favourite of the three. I don't think it's a classic by any means, but I found it a much more engrossing watch than I remembered. I think Michael Bihn's performance is really quite good. I love the sort of behind the scenes of the stage musical that's the musical within the film, if you like. I thought that all that stuff was kind of fun, and you were referencing the jazz hands earlier. It reminded me kind of a film like All That Jazz, mixed with Dressed to Kill, as you said, because there's a real Dressed to Kill feel about the film, particularly with, you see the slashing of, is it Belle is the character's name, who's the secretary for, that's straight out of Dressed to Kill, that scene. And I suppose, as you said, the sleazier aspects, like where he picks up the gay man with the intention of killing him to sort of help fake his own death, is very, very sleazy indeed. The cops here are particularly useless, which is par for the course with these type of movies. I mean, how can Michael Bihn's character get into a crowded swimming pool and slash someone up and then run off without being noticed? That's what I want to know. I know it's 1981 and, forensics aren't as advanced as they are now, but surely somebody would be able to identify him. So... the body count is quite low, actually, when you think of it. I suppose all the slashing, all the murders happen sort of in the last 20 minutes. He does attack people in the sort of opening half, but he doesn't actually kill anyone. So, in terms of classifying it as a slasher, I think you're right. I mean, it is more of a thriller, and I mean, it is a classy thriller in many ways. I mean, it does veer off, as you said, on these weird tangents where some of the dialogue maybe seems really out of place with the tone of the rest of the film, or suddenly it feels very sort of Brian De Palma-ish when it hasn't up until that point. But I did kind of like the sort of schizophrenic nature. It kept me interested. I can tell you from bitter experience that it is very difficult to get near cast dressing rooms of famous celebrities. I mean, take for instance the time I visited the set of The Long Good Friday and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I found it very, very difficult to get past security. So I find it took me out of the film a bit to see how easy it was for Michael Bihn's character to just walk into this. And I'm assuming she's supposed to be this world famous celebrity, and yet he can just waltz in anywhere. He gets into her house, he gets into her rehearsal studios. It all seems a bit convenient. One thing I did like at the start of the film is that Michael Bihn's character works in a record shop even. And did you notice that they're playing a lot of UK two-tone music in the shop, which was great because it's one of my favourites. So you can hear the specials and the selector in it, which I thought was great fun. So yeah, I mean, I suppose it has a giallo feel in some places. It's particularly with the gore. The gore reminded me very much of kind of the murders you would see in a giallo film in the 70s, with sort of slicings up with razors, and there's a scene at the end where there's a knife in the neck in gruesome close up. So I thought it was a decent movie. I mean, it is leisurely paced as I remembered, but I find it much more engrossing than I recall. It's in my top 5 favorite films with a Sally in it. But it's just a shame that Lauren Bacall's sleeves don't go back and forth a bit more, because then maybe it would be number 1, but at the moment that would go to Demons 2.
Although I think, sorry, I was going to say, just as an aside, I think she was a bit of a Sally off screen.
Oh, I'm intrigued to hear more about that. Yeah, so for me, I would give this film, I kind of give it a thumbs up. I was really surprised. I went into the film thinking, oh, I remember this being quite boring. But I didn't find it boring. And that's a compliment. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Erik. Nathan, how about you?
I was just like Erik. I had seen it, I guess, when I was younger. And, of course, in my younger days, and we've talked about this before, I want to see more Friday the 13th style, stuff. Like, that's what entertained me. So I didn't really like this one that much back in the day. And I mean, there was times I thought about revisiting it, but I just never did. So when I was watching it now, I wasn't that excited. But I did find myself getting very engrossed into this story. I thought it was very interesting. I love all his letters that he writes to her, and my favorite one, though, is when he starts with "Dearest bitch." Like Erik, I think it's pretty gutsy to attack someone in a public swimming pool with a lot of people around. I was just like, how is he going to get away with this? But he did. So there you go. And you played this in the opening, but like when he assumes the secretary is a lesbian, it's just so like out there to me. But then, like you were saying, it kind of makes sense later when you think about the fact that he, may be a closeted gay man who is, putting all his energy into like the star that he can't get. To fight, I guess, his homosexual urges. I mean, that that is a kind of an interesting thought, and I kind of thought that myself when he killed the guy, and I was so disappointed. I was like, oh, that guy was actually being nice to him.
He was being very nice to him.
But the secretary, who wasn't nice, and not that she should have been, but who wasn't nice, she gets a couple of slashes. I'm like, that don't seem fair.
Yeah, well, he needed that guy to set up his fake death, so he was expendable.
Why did that girl in the beginning steal the ink pen?
Because she's a crazy fan, and then Michael Biehn tripped her up because he took the pen then, didn't he?
He did, yes.
I don't understand, why would they want why would they want that pen? It didn't look anything like the pen from the Black Christmas remake.
I would have wanted anything from Bob Hoskins, his socks, his pants, anything. So a pen would have done. Just
as an aside, while we're talking about the pen was originally meant to be the weapon that Lauren Bacall sticks in Michael Bihn's throat at the end of the movie. So it had this kind of full circle thing, but they didn't use it for. I'll explain why in the background. But that's why the pen was a pivotal kind of image from the beginning of the movie, and also you see him putting it in his pocket throughout the movie.
See, I do think that there's a lot of talent here because, I mean, I like stuff like in the beginning when we see, Michael Biehn's apartment. And, it's such a tiny, like, little apartment. And, it's kind of juxtaposed. I don't know if I'm saying that right. With Lauren Bacall's, like, big, spacious, area. But they're both very lonely people. It's like no matter what their living situation is, like, no matter how different that is, they are very, like, lonely and alone. And I found that to be kind of an interesting, in the beginning. But like I said, his letters to her, like I like how they just progressively get worse and worse and worse. My favorite one, though, and I even wrote this down in my notes, is the line about "I have all the necessary equipment to make you very, very happy." I thought that was something. And
it's a PlayStation 4.
The only time the movie dragged for me is when we were dealing more with Sally's, relationship. I don't want to say drama because I don't think it's necessarily drama, but just that kind of stuff. Just I don't know. It didn't really do much for me, even though I know it's important to the plot. I did feel bad for her maid, though. Poor Elsa. I mean, yikes! Talk about wrong place at the wrong time, working for the wrong person. You know what I mean?
Did you you notice that when she gets murdered, though, it literally he just pulls the straight razor across her chest, but it's her like maid's tabard, isn't it? And she dies from having like not a very deep slash across the chest. It seemed a bit half-hearted.
Maybe she has a medical condition where all her internal organs are on the outside.
Well, did you know originally in the script, I'm not sure if they shot it because, again, we're getting to background, but she doesn't die either in the original script or the original way it was filmed. They find her and Michael Biehn has used the straight razor and shaved her head.
Oh, interesting.
So it doesn't kill her. It shaves her head for what I'm not quite sure what the significance of that would be. But originally she wasn't murdered. So that was one of the kind of the insert shots, or one of the things they did when they decided to make it more of a slasher movie. They kind of they had as a,
because I think she's the first person to die in the film. I think, isn't it? Because everyone up to that point is slashed but survives, and she's the first actually to get.
Doesn't he assume that the secretary died? Because he says something like it's over quickly, but now she won't be in our way. But maybe he just meant he was taking her out, I guess, just out of the picture temporarily. I don't know.
Well, he kind of, if there was that just as an aside, but that the scenes where Maureen Stapleton, who plays the secretary, is slashed again, that was added later. From what my understanding is that, and it's very much like Angie Dickinson's scene, isn't it, in the lift? So again, I think she was assaulted in the original version, but not slashed like that. That was kind of added to kind of amp up the violence.
Well, what did you guys think about the ending, like when Sally, I guess, kind of confronts him? I actually loved the dialogue in the ending when she's like, "Goddamn terrorist who slaughters innocent people." It's just, I mean, I don't know. I love all her dialogue at the end, like when she's talking about, like she's sick of this reign of terror and everything. I mean, it matches her character, but I was just sitting here listening to that dialogue and I'm like, this is amazing.
Well, I think the main, something that I kind of sort of came out for me was the fact that Lauren Bacall is, and a lot of the contemporary reviews said this, is she doesn't, Lauren Bacall doesn't shout victim. She's not, she looks quite, even when she's smiling, she's somebody who's determined. She's a strong woman. So she doesn't, people have said that actually some of the biggest boon for the movie was Lauren Bacall, but also one of its weakest points was the fact is it's quite difficult to believe of her as a victim. But they were also saying at the time that it seemed a bit hypocritical, her speech at the end, sort of attacking him as this assassin and violence, and said we've had enough of all this violence in real life, blah blah blah. When in fact the film itself is violence is entertainment. So it's kind of I think it's like typically with any kind of movie like this that was made that was kind of messed around with so much that it gets a bit confused. Because originally at the end of as before, we'll talk a bit more about as part of the review, but the other reason why the ending was reshot, because I don't know if you know, it was based on a book, the film, The Fan, which was released by Bob Randall. It was released in 1978. And the original, and that was the way the book was written was it was letters between Lauren Bacall's character, Michael Biehn's character, which again, this is kind of, they've tried to use in the film. But in the end of the book, he shoots her dead. He's in the audience when she's on stage in Broadway, I presume. But he shoots her dead from the audience. And the film, I'm not sure if that I don't know if that was actually filmed, that sequence, but that's how the book ended. But of course, the thing that kind of oversees all of this and why it makes it kind of at the time so current, but also one of its biggest problems was it was filmed before the murder of John Lennon. But also there was the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, the assassination attempt on the Pope. So the film was the ending was reshot, and because one of the things that always kind of stuck with me that I thought was a bit odd was James Garner's character as Sally's ex-husband. he doesn't, he's in it, and then he goes, "I'll be back," and then he doesn't appear in the rest at the end of the film. In the original version that was shot, was that he comes in and he distracts Michael Biehn when Lauren Bacall then stabs him in the neck with the pen. And apparently he had a falling out with Robert Stigwood, the producer. So when they came back for reshoots, he refused to come back to reshoot his part, which is why he doesn't appear in the end of the movie.
And are the outtakes on the DVD, on the Blu-ray, the original ending?
No, there's no. I mean, there's some great, there's interesting interviews with Michael Biehn and sort of the editor and also the director of the film, Ed Bianchi. But we'll talk a bit more about that. I mean, some of the things that I thought were it's as a film, it's unintentionally camp, I kind of guess, for one better term, especially with the Broadway stuff. When Lauren Bacall she was actually a Broadway star at this time, and after this, I think she was appearing on Broadway, but she hasn't. I wouldn't say she has the best voice.
Oh, that's harsh. I mean, I was thinking that for the bulk of the film, and then when you see the proper either dress rehearsal or opening show, whatever it is at the end, I thought she was kind of good. No.
Well, no, she's good. I mean, but I don't think
she's not exactly Toya. I'll give you that, but Kim Wilde.
Thankfully not. But she was meant to be playing somebody who was 49 and just about turning 50, and so this film star who was going to go to Broadway. And she was in reality, she was 57, so she was playing almost 10 years younger than she actually was. But I just felt it felt like a bit of an odd, that whole kind of jazz hands, glitter hats, kind of, and waistcoats, that type of thing. To my mind, it felt like a bit of an odd fit for her, but it adds that kind of campiness to it. But the film doesn't go into kind of like Mommy Dearest territory, really, does it? It doesn't go beyond into that really kind of over the top campiness without knowing that it's campy. I mean, there's some bits in it that made me laugh. It was kind of like the scene when the secretary's in hospital. And Bacall Sally goes to visit her and says, "Oh, you're looking so much better today." And then they pan down to the secretary, and she's got half her face covered in bandages. so this sort of made me laugh. But it kind of, to me, it's kind of felt more along the lines of something like The Eyes of Laura Mars, which, of course, Faye Dunaway was in Mommy Dearest connection. But those kind of 70s, it felt more of a film that had its foot more in the kind of the classier thrillers of the 1970s, and also all of that kind of melodrama between James Garner and Lauren Bacall, and her kind of romantic dalliances with the policeman, and sort of flirting with the people in the show and things like that. Kind of that there was fun in that, but it felt a bit. It didn't kind of, as a thriller, I kind of guess you're getting to know the character a bit more. I mean, I thought there was some really interesting things. There was one of the things I thought was interesting was the opening sequence, which was when you actually see Michael Biehn typing the letter. It reminded me of like kind of Dario Argento, the opening to Deep Red. That kind of macro shots of all.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. It was very Argento-esque, all the close-ups of pencils and typewriters and things.
Because originally, apparently, the film was going to start with him going through magazines in a Times Square shop, and then finding one of Lauren Bacall and going up and paying for it, which, to be honest, sounded quite boring. So I thought it was a better opening. But I kind of quite like those kind of scenes where you had the Michael Bihn's character and Lauren Bacall going about their day in separate ways, but cutting between the two. So it was kind of suggesting a connection between the two of them that was only there in his head, but not in hers. So I think some interesting ideas there, but it's for me, it kind of it fails. It's not a slasher movie that it doesn't work as a slasher movie. In fact, actually, I think the director, I think it was was a bit, almost felt a little bit embarrassed with the added gore effects. They didn't really go over the top with them, did they? But was anything else you want to you thought of with the fan before we talk about some background?
I was thinking that the musical at the end reminded me of Goddess from Showgirls.
Yes.
I just can't picture Lauren Bacall throwing French fries around or anything like that, though.
Can you picture her throwing string at Michael Biehn?
Yes, although I think that she would defeat him with her words.
Yes, she's very wordy.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I missed you. It's been very busy. I completely overslept, so here's some post-show thoughts on The Fan. So, The Fan is a movie I haven't seen since probably the late 80s on cable. Watching it again last night, I was struck the most by three things. The first was that The Fan felt like, for the first hour at least, an advertisement for the U.S. Postal Service. Second, I love how Michael Baine's character seems to be typing out these novel-length letters, and his voiceover narrations are so monosyllabic, like you'll hear clack, 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 clackety clack, 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 over and over, and then his narration is all like, I'm a big fan, quote unquote. Third and the most glaring was how absolutely useless the James Garner character was in this film. For a while, I thought he was going to be the prototypical male whose only function was to save Lauren Bacall's character Sally near the end, but he doesn't even get to do that. He's literally only here to offer Lauren a few kisses now and then, and this half-hearted excuse for why he's traded her in for a younger model, until he finally just kind of wanders back into her life at the last second, only to completely disappear from the film altogether. So I think The Fan has a few strange problems it can't quite overcome. Most of the film feels more like a half-realized stalker film more than it does a slasher. And when the actual slashing starts, it's more or less repetitive razor blade attacks. Now, having said all that, I still quite enjoyed The Fan because I think the atmosphere, that 1980, 1981 turn of the decade New York City look, the black tuxedos, the luxurious formal wear, and the hair that lingers between flat and full. I love all that stuff. And at the heart of it is a fairly effective cautionary tale on the importance of, taking stalkers seriously. Something that wasn't really a priority around this time and in a lot of places still isn't today. Lauren Bacall, she's good, though she looks more or less bored through much of the film. I think Michael Baine's character is the true centerpiece. He's very effective as a man who exists in this microcosm of no self-awareness whatsoever. And I think Maureen Stapleton as Bacall's assistant nearly steals a lot of the movie herself. So it's not a total win, but enough of the film generates the right amount of suspense, even if it does peter out toward the conclusion. It's a half-hearted recommendation. When it comes to these classy turn-of-the-decade psycho thrillers, I much prefer something like The Eyes of Laura Mars, which utilizes the atmosphere in much the same way, but ultimately knows better how to handle the characters and suspense. So The Fan, I say it's a good film, but it's not one I have an interest in returning to, if I'm honest.
Right. Well, backgrounds. Nathan, what have you got for us?
No.
Okay.
It's just been a really busy week.
That's completely fine. But Erik, do you have anything?
I do have a few things. So it was filmed, as you said, before John Lennon was shot, which was December 1980. This was filmed between April and June of 1980. It was originally filmed under the title The Air Conditioning.
Oh, Erik.
Did you get it? The Fan. That's not even my joke of the week. So it opened on May the 15th, 1981, which was the exact same day as Happy Birthday to Me, and only a few weeks after Friday the 13th Part 2 and Graduation Day, and a week after The Burning. What a time to be alive it was in May 1981. The film was nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Original Song for Hearts, Not Diamonds, with music by Marvin Hamlish and lyrics by Tim Rice. I like it too. And now it didn't win. It lost out to a song called Baby Talk from the film Paternity. Now, I do like the song Hearts, Not Diamonds. I kind of have issues with those Golden Raspberry Awards because the more I look at their nominations, the more I think that they're highbrow film snobs who are just looking down on anything in the exploitation arena, and they're just sneering at these films, which I know we can be guilty of as well, but I don't know. Ed Bianchi, is that how you pronounce his name? This was his feature film directorial debut, and he didn't make another one for another 10 years. 1991's Off and Running, starring Cyndi Lauper, which I've never heard of. As Justin said, of course, the original DVD release had replaced the line, how would you like to be fucked with a meat cleaver? It replaced it with the line, dearest bitch, I've exhausted myself on thinking of ways to kill you. So that's what it says there. The VHS version featured the original line, though, as Justin said. Other actresses who were considered by producer Robert Stigwood for the lead female character were Anne Bancroft and Shirley MacLaine. The start of principal photography of this picture was delayed from September 1979 until February 1980, but did not commence, as I said, until April 1980. So Justin probably has more information on what those delays were caused by. And I think that is... Oh, sorry. The choreography, finally, for the musical within the film is by Arlene Phillips, who probably isn't a name recognizable to people in the US, but over in the UK, she's kind of famous. She was the director and choreographer of the dance troupe Hot Gossip, who introduced us to Sarah Brightman, of course, and had that hit single, I Lost My Heart to a Starship Trooper, I think it was 1979. She was a judge on Strictly Come Dancing, which is the UK version of Dancing with the Stars. And she did the choreography for the 1982 movie version of Annie, Monty Python's The Meaning of Life in 83, and Ridley Scott's Legend in 85. And she also choreographed many classic 80s pop videos, including I'm Still Standing by Elton John, Wild Boys by Duran Duran, and she also did stuff for Donna Summer, Whitney Houston, Paul Young, and Olivia Newton-Bomb. And I think that's all I have, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I'll try not to repeat anything you've said, but we mentioned that it was an adaptation of the novel *The Fan* by Bob Randall that was very popular and released in early 1978. In September 1979, Robert Stigwood, who was a producer of Grease and Saturday Night Fever, announced that his company would be making *The Fan*, and Lauren Bacall was attached. I saw something about some legal battle between Stigwood and Filmways, who sued and countersued over ownership of the project. I'm not entirely sure what that was about, but it certainly was picked up, like Friday the 13th was, by Paramount as a negative pickup, and they put it out. So it wasn't made by Paramount, but it was released by them. Ed Bianchi replaced the original director as Waris Hussein, who was a British director who was fired from the project or walked after Stigwood decided to turn it from the original idea, which is more of a psychological thriller, into a slasher movie. Bianchi, I think you mentioned he was known mostly for Dr. Pepper commercials. Apparently, he had made something called Times Square before this, which looked like a punk rock drama with Tim Curry.
Tim Curry is hot.
Well, but Bianchi had originally been hired to write Saturday Night Fever 2. So he replaced Hussein very quickly. So I think he only had a week or 2 or 3 weeks to prep the movie. He said that Bacall was tough while making it. He said that because she was pissed off that the film had been changed from a thriller into more of a slasher movie, and said much of the violence was kind of shot later and added. Michael Biehn was signed on by the original director. So the script was changed to Ape the Success, Address to Kill, and Friday the 13th. And they sort of say, like, they added the close-ups of Maureen Stapleton being slashed like Angie Dickinson. And apparently the only bloody scene in the movie, apart from the ending, was the scene with the man being slashed underwater in the swimming pool. Paramount picked up the production in February 1981. It was planned for a national release. Interestingly, that John Lennon was shot dead on the 8th of December 1980. And one of a strange coincidence was Lauren Bacall actually lived in the same building where John Lennon was shot. So at the time, so Paramount, when they put it out, they put out a disclaimer saying that The Fan wasn't in any way connected with or meant to exploit the death of John Lennon. But Lauren Bacall and various other people said that they were actually thought that it was completely the opposite, that they had done that to exploit it, and it was actually their kind of marketing department had said it. Lauren Bacall said she hated the way she was filmed in this. She wasn't very it wasn't a very happy shoot for her. She said of the film, it was much more violent than when I read the script. The movie I wanted to make had more to do with what happens to in real life to the woman, less blood and gore. She did say it gave her the best part I've had in years, but it was horribly edited to bring out the blood and gore, and that she hadn't signed up to make a slasher movie. And she was angry about Paramount putting out disclaimers. She was quoted in the press as saying, "I think it's disgusting, revolting, and exploitative. I hope they will stop using it. Obviously, whoever decided to do it thought it would help the movie. I think it will hurt it." The Michael Biehn was kind of interesting, and on the documentary, well, it's an interview with him on Screen Factory release. He was only 23 when he made this. He said that he was Paramount apparently had planned a big press junket for him and Lauren Bacall to promote the film. And he said that when he went out to do his first interview with LA Times, and he was so young, he didn't realize that you weren't supposed to talk candidly about your making of a movie. So he told the LA Times that basically Lauren Bacall was a bit of a see you next Tuesday, and he didn't enjoy working with her. He said that she was very rude to him, that apparently he went up and took her a bunch of roses, and she just took them and said, "Kurt, thank you," and then gave them to assistant and turned away. And that was apparently at a party they'd arranged for him to meet the stars. He said at the time he was confused, but later on he just thought it was incredibly rude of her. And he said that it got worse as the shoot went along. That in the film, of course, they don't really meet until the end of the movie. And he said that when they were doing their kind of physical tussles, that he kind of did a misstep, and he kind of tripped, and I think he dropped her, but he kind of. I don't know, she injured herself, but apparently he said that she despised him after that and called him that actor, Michael Biehn. And apparently she called the director Mr. Dr. Pepper director. So she wasn't a particularly happy shoot, apparently. What else was there? Yes, I mentioned about Michael Biehn was originally meant to be stabbed in the neck with a pen. That was stolen from the Sally characters in the beginning. There's a funny story about, well, not funny story, but apparently Maureen Stapleton, who the scene in the lift where he goes to Sally's apartment building and he gets in the lift, and Maureen Stapleton, the secretary's character, doesn't know that he is the stalker. But apparently Maureen Stapleton was well known. She won the Oscar the same year for the film Reds, but she was known for having a bit of a drinking problem. But she also had like major phobias, and one of those was of lifts. And apparently she also wouldn't fly. So apparently she had to get back from Europe to America to make the film. She came on a tanker for some reason. Apparently it wasn't there wasn't a kind of a line or anything, but apparently she came on a tanker, but she hated lifts. So they shot the film, and they said to her that, okay, well, we've got this in the lift, but it's not going to go anywhere. You're just going to walk in and you're going to stand there. We're going to film it. And she sort of said, okay, maybe some Dutch courage. And apparently she went in, and for whatever reason, I think she pressed a button on the lift. It was a real lift, and the lift started going up. And because she had a phobia of lifts, she completely freaked out on the lift. And apparently the lift was going up and started shaking. So Michael Biehn said he was scared. But she started, because they were meant to be, made it look like it was in the wintertime, she had loads of coats and stuff on. She started stripping in the lift and ripping off all her clothes. And so right down to her underwear and her garters, and was on the floor screaming. And when they finally got the lift down, apparently she crawled out the lift. So
wow,
so, yes, what a story. So
yes.
What else was there? So yeah, apparently the other thing I thought was quite interesting to talk about Michael Biehn, sort of the director talks about this on the Screen Factory disc, was the scene at the end where Michael Biehn is kind of dead in the chair and he's staring and the camera pans back to Sally character and she walks off. Apparently they kept on doing it and he kept on blinking because it's quite a long shot. And in the end they brought in a hypnotist to hypnotize him to stop him blinking, which I thought was quite interesting. The film wasn't shown to critics ahead of its release, and that was kind of, people said that possibly it was because fear of a gay backlash like Cruising, because when Cruising came out, it was picketed by members of the gay community. There was a rumor I saw, and I don't know whether or not this is true or not, or how much to weight to put behind it. Apparently, originally it was meant to star Elizabeth Taylor and be directed by Jeff Lieberman, who of course made Squirm and Just Before Dawn. Maybe that's true. I don't know. Apparently, the special effects guru Dick Smith was called in to add blood and guts in post-production. That Alan Jones said in his review of the film in Starburst. The film got back then. I don't know if they still do this in the States, but they called it cinema score, and they used to publish this in the newspapers for people deciding whether they're going to go and see a movie, and they would have the score by people who just gone to the previews, and they'd say whether or not it's an A, B, C or whatever kind of movie and how likely they were to recommend it. But the film was a C, and so was Happy Birthday to Me, and I think The Howling. The 54% of the audience was female, which I thought was interesting. And let's make sure I haven't gone on too much on it about it, but it's just some of the. I've got a couple of mentions from contemporary reviews here. That Carol Mazur in the Albuquerque Journal said that it was timely if uneven, obviously talking about the connections to the real life assassination attempts and real murder of John Lennon. She said that just over a month ago, a young man took shots at Ronald Reagan to impress a movie star, which of course was Jodie Foster. And now we have a movie about a great star's fan who starts slitting up people around her in order to get attention. The Philadelphia Daily News called it a horror variation on Woody Allen's Stardust Memories, with death on its breath, and also compared it to the 1960 Doris Day suspense Midnight Lace. Have you guys seen Midnight Lace?
No.
It's worth a watch. It's actually quite an effective little, like, not proto slasher exactly, but it's effective little suspenser. Desmond Ryan in the Philadelphia Inquirer said, I might add that it is saddening to see the contagious influence that the gory excesses of tacky horror movies like Maniac and Friday the 13th are having on mainstream movies. Somehow they seem more offensive in more pretentious surroundings, which I thought was a kind of interesting comparison, saying that actually the critics found it more offensive because it wasn't like a grindhouse movie. It was a kind of a major studio, or released by a major studio. The Journal News said it settles to be a classy version of Friday the 13th, which I wrote in brackets, if only. Just a couple of other ones was the Journal News, Jackie Tully of the Arizona Daily Star noted that the film lacks substance, but also said that the story is uncomfortably close to the events surrounding John Lennon's death. And lastly was the Arizona Republic says in one of the kind of few good reviews, there was a few good reviews, but it said, but flawed as it may be, the fan overall is a smart, warm, witty and chilling thriller, the kind they almost don't make anymore. So the last couple of things was the movie was actually if Paramount had hoped that the disclaimer and the kind of we're not trying to exploit John Lennon's death, but we're going to put this. People are going to write about it, so they kind of were. It didn't encourage people to go and see it. In fact, I think the reverse psychology didn't work in so much that they said that most people actually didn't want to go and see a movie about an assassination attempt or a sort of a crazed star because people are still kind of mourning the death of John Lennon. The only other thing I think, I don't know if you. I'm not sure if this name's come up before, but do you know who the film was shot by? Do you know the name of the man? No. It's someone I think that it would be right up Eric's alley. Is Dick Bush. It was the cinematographer. I know, a British cinematographer, but he also, the reason I mention it was that he shot some of the Hammer films like Dracula AD 1972. Also, I think it's Tygon's The Blood and Satan's Claw, but also one of your favourites, Erik, is Phase 4. So
love Phase 4.
So he was the man behind that. So, and very lastly, I think I've covered everything else, would say the film only made a gross in the United States of $3 million, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't a lot when you think that Friday the 13th made $40 million, and I'm sure Dress to Kill, I haven't looked at, made a lot more than that as well. So yeah, I think that's everything I have on the background of the fan.
Wow, that was some of the best background you've ever done.
Oh. Yes. Just on the subject of John Lennon's death, because this is not anything to do with the fan, but the band Altered Images, who were proteges kind of in the early days of Susie and the Banshees, they actually released their debut single the month John Lennon was shot, and their song was called Dead Pop Stars, which obviously was recorded before John Lennon was shot, but as a result it did not get any airplay and it did not enter the charts at all. They had to wait another year before their chart success came their way. But talk about unfortunate timing. for a song called Dead Pop Stars.
Well, yes, it's also quite an unusual song for them, isn't it? Because most people probably know them for their kind of slightly cutesy indie, but Dead Pop Stars is kind of post-punky, isn't it? It's sort of quite spiky sounding. So right. Well, I think that is the. Unless it doesn't look like Joseph is joining us just at the moment. So,
out of 58 votes, 85% of those listeners enjoyed The Fan, whilst the other 15% did not. Our listener of the week is Amanda Reyes, who will soon be joining us for an upcoming episode. And she writes, Michael Biehn is the hottest psycho ever. I was just talking about this movie today. What I like so much about it is that many, and maybe all, of the victims are older people, and it's kind of brutal, and we're just not used to seeing older people killed like that on screen. It's still a bit taboo, and I love that the film went there. Also, points to the filmmakers for having a hot 20-something obsessed with a much older woman. Granted, it's Lauren fucking Bacall. Again, it's subversive. I appreciate that this film goes somewhere different. And hell yeah, I love that frickin' Hearts and Diamonds song. Ha ha ha, I don't know. This is a good film, quote unquote. That was from Amanda Reyes, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you catch your pods, and we're all up in Google's business, so just search The Hysteria Continues. Our email address is info or feedback at thehysteriacontinues.net.
Okay, so this is from Christy Valenti, and Christy says, Hi, I'm curious. I googled around and it appears that you haven't, but to confirm, have you covered Fade to Black? I can understand the argument that it's not a slasher proper, but it does have slasher elements. Yablins, yo. I mean, it's hard to find and it's an odd duck, but I think there's room for discussion there. Christopher Dennis is certainly giving it his all. If nothing else, his character would be us if we never discovered Fango or blogging or message boards or fanzines. Take care, team, and that's from Christy Valenti. Well, Fade to Black is on the horizon, I know, so never fear.
Yes, it's one that we do plan to cover, and it's one that actually I was quite interested in doing like a deep dive for Hysteria Lives at some point. So because it's a film that I haven't seen for a long time.
I haven't seen it for a long time either. I don't remember great things about it, but I had it on DVD back 20 years ago, and it was an awful cheapo transfer from the UK. So
I think it was also the, if I remember correctly, I think again it was when we talked about this before, but when we start out on the slasher movie and you kind of get all enthused by Friday the 13th and Halloween and My Bloody Valentine and all those great movies, that when something doesn't quite fit into what we now think of as a slasher movie, and Fade to Black was again a kind of quirky sort of take on that kind of sort of murder movie rather than sort of a kind of a slasher movie as such, of how we would think of it perhaps. So, but yeah, I think it'd be interesting going back to visit it. So, so Nathan, did you find?
Okay, so this one says, Hello, Podfathers. Jay here. I'm loving episode number 215. So much fun. I've been digging through my movie collection lately, looking for horror to keep me occupied, and I came across two oldies that I really enjoyed. The first one is Naked Massacre from 1976. It's set in Belfast, and the killer is an American Vietnam vet. The second one is Scream Bloody Murder from 1975, which I see that Justin actually reviewed on the website. Yes, it does scream Grindhouse. It's funny that I happen to watch these because they remind me of two movies I've also watched recently, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and Maniac. I'm not saying they're equal to these films, but they definitely feel similar. Have any of you seen these? In closing, I just want to say keep up the great work. Can't wait to find out what movie commentaries y'all are doing next. P.S. Lady Terminator, please. Jay Bullington, producer and co-host of Have You Seen This One, a.k.a. HYSTO. And to answer his question for me, I have seen Scream Bloody Murder. And I mean, I remember liking it, but it's been a while. Mainly what I remember is that he kills this maid, and it's kind of a very brutal killing, in my opinion. But Naked Massacre, I've not seen. What about you guys?
Naked Massacre sounds like one of your movies, Nathan.
It does. So I haven't seen Naked Massacre. I've heard of it. Scream Bloody Murder, again, it's one that I did review for the website a long time ago. And I think it was kind of one of those ones that was influenced like the early 70s, the Herschel Gordon Lewis style movies, because I think it was advertised as, when it was released as the first movie, gornography movie, I think it was kind of termed. So obviously playing off the proliferation and the popularity of kind of hardcore pornography in the early 1970s with like Beyond the Green Door and Deep Throat, and also the gore movies of Herschel Gordon Lewis, although it's not a sexually explicit movie. It's one I've need to remember, because I think it's the one where he gets his hand chopped off at the beginning by a combine harvester or something, doesn't he? And he has a hook for a hand.
Yeah, it's a hook. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was one I'd like to revisit at some point. The other one, The Naked Massacre, it sounds like an interesting proto slasher. It's been one on my periphery on the horizon for many years, but I've never. But Erik, have you seen either of those?
The name Scream Bloody Murder rings a bell, but I can't remember anything about it. Although I have seen films called Scream and one's called Bloody Murder, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Well, I've got one here as well. So it says, "Hi there, guys. Just thought I'd finally take a minute to write to you all. Thanks so much for putting together such a great podcast. It's my absolute favourite. No respect to the others out there, but you're severed heads and shoulders above any others I've given a try. You four always make me smile and have broadened my horizons greatly. Nathan and Erik would definitely be my most kindred spirits, though. I love most anything from the 80s, Erik.
Yay!
Have you ever discussed the Lamberto Bava Jaws rip-off Devilfish on the podcast?
Not yet. I think that's also known as... is that the one that's also called Monster Shark?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I have that one.
And it says the main character, Michael Sotke, really enjoys his American beer with gusto. I'm setting you up for an alcohol-consuming comparison to your co-host, Wink. And Nathan, those picks of yours are usually called Casey picks around my neck of the woods. So what's that mean then, a Casey pick?
Well, is this person's name Casey?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well, there you go.
Because, like for me, like they're called Nathan picks.
I see. Okay. So it says, who's a happy camper? Speaking of which, if you two Chattanoogan's ever find yourself in Asheville, I'd love to show you around. We still have a video store here, Orbit DVD, if I can name drop. And besides a huge rental catalogue with an overwhelming horror section, they always manage to have amazing obscurities on VHS. I found Beyond the Door 3, Dark Room, Phantom of the Mall, Nightmare Beach, and perhaps the most frightening of all, Hydra in the House. Gary Busey living in your attic, chilling. All right, enough for now. Keep up the amazing work and stay safe out there. Kindly, Casey Ellis. So yes, you're right. It was a Casey pick.
And I have been to Asheville. I've been to the Biltmore. Have you guys ever heard of the Biltmore? It's like a big castle, and it's an old building. And every time I'm there, I'm like, this would be such a good setting for a slasher movie.
Well, like a castle, like a sort of Bram Stoker's Dracula castle.
It's like a big mansion, but it looks castle-y to me.
So it's kind of one of those. It's like something that was built to sort of mock Gothic kind of.
Yeah, and like it's one of those. It's almost like it's kind of like the Downton Abbey kind of thing, because the servants' quarters are downstairs, and God, they're terrible. It's like a little room with a bed and a sink. I'm like, these poor servants, and the rich people's bedrooms are all lavish and incredible. I would not want to be a servant back in those days. Even though I'm I've seen Downton Abbey, so I'm like, yeah, the servants, no. I don't have people talking down to me.
Wow.
Right. Well, that was, thank you for writing in. We always love to hear from you. So, but I kind of guess that leaves.
It's my joke of the week. It's so great and fantastic.
So, how did Michael Biehn elude the police when he broke into the front of Sally's house? Because he was at the front entrance and the law were in the back hall. Law were in the back hall. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
I know that Joseph is so upset that he's missing all this.
Well, do we have anything left to say? Whose choice is it next time?
It's yours.
Mine.
Oh, no, hang on, no. No, that's mine. It's mine. Oh, sorry, yeah. Whoops, yeah. Well, it's a very apt film for me because I have nothing underneath. From 1985, Italian/US slasher mayhem-ish. Models and stuff.
I'm very excited for it. I haven't seen it now. I used to have it on VHS, but I don't know that I ever actually watched it.
Yes, it's very 80s.
I found one interesting. There's an article just going back to the fan, and it was somebody was saying that were a critic. I'm not saying I agree with this, but they were saying that they were saying that now killers were not allowed to be any ethnicity or anything. That it seemed that only the gay men could be killers now in Hollywood movies, which was kind of an interesting point of view. But obviously this is coming off the kind of controversy of Cruising, and a lesser controversy, although it was quite controversial at the time, Windows. But again, they're all New York set as well, which is interesting because obviously Windows, I think it's in New York, and Cruising, I'm pretty sure, set in New York. So,
you know what I think though, Justin?
What's that?
I think that it's not so much that him being gay is what's driving him to murder. I think it's more about him repressing it, and the repression causes all this like seething hatred that he takes out on the world. So you see, don't repress, express. I think you're right. Although whether or not how much of that was built in, I certainly Michael Biehn, the interview with him on the Screen Factory release, he does talk a little bit about that, and sort of saying how he kind of understood it, but he was a bit too young to really understand where it was going from. But he said it kind of gave the character a bit of depth, or a bit sort of, whereas otherwise he was kind of quite one-notey, really, wasn't he? I think he was kind of good in the film. It just kind of changed from being kind of an overzealous fan to a psycho. But this kind of gave us sort of a bit of an indication about, like you say, perhaps repression was the thing that was causing him to go crazy. So, right. Well, I think to play out with, I was looking up, actually, I remember you mentioned Erik. I'm not sure if I can bring myself to play out with the Lauren Bacall singing. So, well, maybe if we might have a little bit of that, but Do the Dog by the Specials, which was the one of the songs that's playing in the record store, we can play out with that. So, well, next time, well, hopefully we'll be joined by Joseph when we go back to Italy, and we can see who's wearing nothing underneath. Right. Well, say goodbye to the good people. Bye, everyone.
Hannibal.
Hannibal.
Oh dear.